think about what you might like to ask, and it's a great opportunity to ask any of those. I'm sure, I know for a fact there are some real kind of fans of your music in the audience, so people have got things they'd really like to ask, or anything about the creative process that you'd like to know about, please do pitch in. We've got handheld mics if you're not kind of heard. I'll just kick off with one question for you, because I'm kind of interested really in this. What was it like to play in a bunker? And is that the weirdest venue you've played in? If not, what was the weirdest venue?
I don't think it is the weirdest. Well, it's pretty close.
Pretty close. What was a near?
Well, playing in the woods in a festival was weird because there isn't any power in the woods.
Electronic festival.
Took quite some time, music festival. Took quite some time to get the power leads over. But it's pretty close.
Pretty close.
It's good. The one we really planned to do was the cooling tower at some point, because I think the sound would be wonderful in a cooling tower. Nice and echoey.
That would be great. We did wonder at one point when we were looking at this gig whether you did some of it in the bunker, and then we took you to, there's a kind of a high-rise sort of block of flats that is kind of empty at the moment that has been used for other Vespertine events.
Yeah,
and we thought we'd go from underground to high-rise. Yeah, exactly. But it could be an interesting. Then we thought the idea of trying to move all the stuff from one place to another place and do that in the end, it was not the right move. But what about you, Benge? Anything in particular?
I did play in a sort of disused tin mine or something in Sweden, which was quite amazing. And that had like a 20-second reverb on the sound, so
amazing.
You had to design the set for the space, very much so.
Yeah.
But that was the interesting thing there tonight, was that we didn't really know what to expect for the sound, so we were really pleased it kind of sounded nice in there.
It did.
Yeah, it's a good sounding room, and that was a surprise.
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect a nuclear bunker to sound good. Pleasant way to pass off the planet, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, yes, yeah. I suppose that's one kind of looking on the bright side of it. Yeah. So, has anybody got any questions that they'd like to ask? Yes. Hello, sir.
Am I going to get a mic?
I think we can hear you probably, but yes, if there's a mic coming, sir.
I'll wait for the mic. Hi. As someone who has an office underground and my access to the internet continually packs up, I can truly relate to machine stuff. And I am an old fan of early Ultravox as well, I have to say, John. And some of your early work as a solo performer. Sorry I missed the show earlier on. My question is really about the book. Presumably you both read the book before. How did you feel about getting involved in performing with that book by Ian Forster?
Well, it's a real privilege, I think.
It's just, the interesting thing for me was that, how I managed to predict this sort of scenario that we find ourselves in now. And I hadn't heard about it until, I was introduced to it here. So, I think that sort of thing's really interesting, where you get, something to be so well predicted in advance like that. It's amazing.
Yeah, I read it at school in the 1960s, and I was really intrigued by it, and I thought it was a good, interesting story. But that was before the internet, and then the internet came along, and the story got even more predictive, if you like. And I just don't know how he could have possibly foreseen, not just technology changing like that. In 1909.
But he probably wrote it in 1908, I think. It was published in 1908.
It's phenomenal because, electricity wasn't commonly used everywhere then, and it was very primitive in terms of electronic. There weren't any electronics really.
Television wasn't even around. It was the early stages. They were just beginning to understand what the technology might allow them to do. But
there was some film technology.
A little bit of film.
It wasn't that widely available. So how he could foresee that is, I just don't know. But also what interests me is not just foreseeing the technology, but the effect of it. How the internet, I think the internet has smuggled in isolation under the guise of communication. and connection, you actually get more isolated by using social media and using the computer than you would if you went out and talked to people in the street, you know. And it's ironic that you get less connection under the pretense of being connected, and you're not actually connected. So
it is interesting, isn't it, how you can, it is interesting how you can have that connection with people on the other side of the world, but say you sit in your little box at home and you have to communicate with your own neighbours.
Yes. It's fascinating, and it's something we have to deal with, but we need to understand it better. But he foresaw all that in 1909 or 1908. I still think it's miraculous.
The other thing to think about is that if we are so reliant on this technology, if it suddenly comes to a halt, then that really does.
That's exactly the point.
That's a spoiler, Benge. I know it's in the title. Who is in the title? The machine does stop. We can probably say that.
But I often think what would happen. I look around at the structures we live in, which are really have evolved over hundreds of years, really, and into markets have changed into supermarkets now. And I wonder what would happen if all that fine